up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, it's May 18th, about 5 o'clock Central Time. We're going over my wide receiver projections. This is my initial release of the wide receiver projections. I've already done videos on quarterback and running back. I'll probably link those in the description or something if you want to check those out. But what we're going to do, we're going to hop into a screen share. I'm going to open up the 2023 Fantasy Football Playbook. It's free this year. Just go to the website. There's a link in the description. You just click on the playbook, and from there, you got tons of access to a lot of content. I just put some rankings up there today. Here's the projections that we're going to be looking at. Let's go ahead and click into those. And yeah, we're going over the wide receivers, and these are my. I mean, I just finished these projections last week. It's really my first rendition of these. I think over the next, couple weeks and pretty much all summer, I'm going to be adjusting these. So we'll figure out what's good, what's wrong, what needs to be tweaked. But I am feeling pretty good about where things are at for the most part. So let's go ahead and look into this. I'm just going to reveal like the top 12 or so for now. That'll do it. And top of the list, it's Justin Jefferson. No surprises there. Here, I'm gonna do a little bit more zooming in here. Justin Jefferson is my wide receiver one. I think he's most people's wide receiver one. He should be the first overall pick in your fantasy teams this year. The dude's going to, go off for another 180 targets. I have him going for 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns. I actually have him regressing from last year's numbers. So we'll see what happens, but I'm all aboard Justin Jefferson. He's worth the first overall pick in your fantasy drafts. Number two, I don't really have a lot of difference from other rankings I've seen. It did come out as Jamar Chase. I think this is the year Jamar Chase really shows us how good of a receiver he is. He missed a little bit of time last year with injury, but oh my God. This year he's set up to dominate. I'm not really feeling the Bengals running game this year. I think they're going to lean heavily on the passing game and Jamar Chase as long as he stays healthy. He's the one guy that I think could outdo Justin Jefferson. I think Tyreek Hill is close. I actually have Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase tied at my wide receiver 2-3 ranking, both with the same amount of PPR points. Chase gets the nod in half PPR and standard, but basically they're the same guy. Huge seasons coming for Jefferson, Chase, Tyreek Hill. My number 4 wide receiver is Cooper Kupp. I don't know how I feel about Cooper Kupp. He's not a guy I'm super excited to draft when I'm doing best balls. And you get the 4th, 5th overall pick. You're kind of like, the Rams, man. Not exactly a team you want to be super into in 2023. There's a lot of holes on that defense, but who knows? Maybe that means they have to throw the ball a ton, and it could lead to some big Cooper Kupp numbers. But you also, you're attaching yourself to Matthew Stafford. We're curious about his health. He does look good this summer so far. But Cooper Kupp coming in at number 4, I expect him to bounce back and be a top wide receiver 1 for you. Number 5, Stephon Diggs, same old with him. He is just locked into being Josh Allen's target hog, man. He's going to lead the Bills in touchdowns, lead them in yards, receptions, targets. Like, he is their guy for everything. And I think you're set up for another successful Stephon Diggs year. He is getting up there in age. So in Dynasty, I think this is an opportunity to maybe sell him and cash out before things potentially decline in the future. But he's such a good player. He's set up really nicely for 2023. Now, at number 6, this is where I begin to differ a little bit from the majority of people that I see rankings, and that's going to be Garrett Wilson there. I have Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 6, and I'm super excited about Aaron Rodgers becoming a New York Jet. It's going to boost the entire team. It's going to boost the defense. It's going to boost the offense. It's just going to boost every single player that he's around. And Garrett Wilson is at the top of the list as guys that are going to basically benefit the most from Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he had a fantastic rookie season. Let's see where he finished last year in full PPR. And these are all full PPR thoughts that I'm having here on the wide receivers. But the dude last year, Garrett Wilson, where are you? Wide receiver 21. And again, how many games were those with Zach Wilson? Pretty disgusting what he's going to be walking into this year. He had 147 targets last year, only 83 receptions on those 147 targets, but 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's going to set career highs in pretty much every number this year, and he's going to basically do, I think, a Devontae Adams impersonation. That's how good he is. So Garrett Wilson, I've been drafting Garrett Wilson as early as the 1st pick in the 2nd round. I like grabbing some receivers ahead of him based on ADP, but Wilson's definitely a guy I'm targeting aggressively in the 2nd round of fantasy drafts. And who knows, he might even be a 1st round pick come August, but we'll see. Number 7 is CeeDee Lamb. Super excited about CeeDee Lamb. I think last year he it's going to be tough to top his numbers last year. 156 targets, 107 receptions, 1359 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He also had 47 yards rushing. I think that's kind of his ceiling. You bring in a guy like Brandon Cooks. You still have Michael Gallup coming back healthy. They did lose the tight end, so maybe that could buoy some numbers there. But either way, CeeDee Lamb, he's gonna flirt with the top 5 wide receiver finish, and I think he's basically guaranteed top 10 wide receiver production. So he's a really safe pick. I think you're slightly concerned about the Cowboys. I mean, they're on the record saying they want to run the ball more this year. They got rid of Kellen Moore. So that is something to slightly be considered about, but I'm not overly concerned about that right now. A.J. Brown coming in at number 8. I think in my rankings, I probably would rather have A.J. Brown over CeeDee Lamb. I'm not sure. But either way, I got A.J. Brown coming in for another massive year. Last year, A.J. Brown, wide receiver 5. These numbers are going to be hard to beat for him as well. I mean, he set career highs across the board with targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. I think these are going to be, again, very hard for him to beat. He's put up 303 PPR points last year. I have him at about 285, which still, that would have put him wide receiver 7. So either way, he's in for another nice season. Hopefully he can stay healthy too. That was one thing he struggled with in Tennessee, but it looks like he figured that out in Philly. Number 9 is Davante Adams. And I'm not sure what to think about Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo. The one thing I do know, Davante kept, playing well with the backup over there. I think it was it Jarrett Stidham. He played well enough with any quarterback. So as long as Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, Davante Adams is going to eat. And if anything happens after that, we'll see. But Davante Adams, he's still a wide receiver 1. He's not my favorite guy to acquire, though, because he kind of costs like a late first, early second round pick. I'm taking Garrett Wilson. I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. I'm taking A.J. Brown over him. So it's tough for me to get Davante on my teams right now. Number 10 is Chris Olave, who think about Derek Carr last year. He just pummeled the hell out of Davante Adams with targets. I think that's what's going to happen to Chris Olave down in New Orleans. And Olave had a fantastic rookie season. Where did he finish? Chris Olave, wide receiver 24, and 119 targets, 72 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. I can easily see him smashing all of his career highs. So Chris Olave is one of those guys that I'm targeting aggressively at the, end of round 2. Sometimes he falls in the 3rd round. He's one of my favorite guys to collect in that range. Good evening to Scott. Hope you're doing well as well. Let's see here. Moving on to number 11, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm a little bit lower on Amon-Ra St. Brown than I think most people, but the one thing for me is, yes, he's going to lead the team in receptions, targets, yards, and probably touchdowns. I'm slightly concerned that we're overhyping the Lions offense a bit too much, but we'll see. Either way, Amon-Ra St. Brown in full PPR, he's a wide receiver 1. So I like him a lot. I'm not drafting him a lot at where he's being drafted on in best ball leagues right now. But either way, dude's set up for another huge season. Jared Goff played beyond expectations last year. I expect him to continue playing pretty well. And then at number 12, I have Jalen Waddle. Who he had a monster year last year, especially his yards per catch. Those were through the roof. I have those numbers coming down a little bit, but either way, what was he, wide receiver 8 last year? So you're kind of getting it. We're kind of getting a little bit of a discount on Jalen Waddle compared to what his ceiling could be. But I like Jalen Waddle as a low end wide receiver 1, a guy that you can trust out there every week for us. Let's move on to my wide receiver 2s. These guys are ranked 13th through 24. Let's see. I got Devonta Smith. You can't argue with Devonta Smith. He's set up for another big season. And I actually think the presence of A.J. Brown helps him. Those two are kind of like a tandem together where they're not really competing for targets. There's enough to go around for both of them. The only issue that I have potentially with the Eagles, both guys, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, went nuclear last year. Dallas Goedert missed a little bit of time. So I wonder I had Devonta Smith in fantasy last year. He was kind of up and down for the beginning part of the year. And then when Dallas Goedert got hurt, that's when Devonta's stock began to soar. So slightly something to just worry about there. I think Devonta looks better. Like when you're filling out your roster, he looks really, really good as a wide receiver 2 compared to, he just seems a little light if you draft him as your wide receiver 1. But either way, he's going in that same range as Olave, Devonta Smith, Olave at the end of the round 2, early round 3. Coming in at number 14, DK Metcalf. And DK last year had himself a pretty good year. Um, 90 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. The thing that I noticed is he had a career low yards per catch, and also a career low in receiving touchdowns. He did set a career high in receptions, which was nice. So I'm hoping that these yardage numbers and the touchdown numbers go up, and I think there's room for him to do that with, again, just year two of Geno. Maybe the presence of JSN helps him become more of a target as well. But DK Metcalf, you're drafting him as a stud wide receiver too. He's got top 10 potential as well. Dude can easily hit double-digit touchdowns. So I think he has a really nice. You can get him in round 3. He's got a really nice ceiling where it's not going to surprise us if he ends up as a top 5, top 10 wide receiver. And then after that, like, my alphas are kind of over. I like Amari Cooper. I don't love Amari Cooper. I think he's a nice wide receiver too. Christian Kirk, another nice wide receiver too for me. He's going to probably lead the Jags in receptions. We'll see about touchdowns. He's going to have some competition from Calvin Ridley, who I'm kind of lower on. We haven't quite seen Calvin Ridley on my list yet. But then there's Terry McLaurin. I know Sam Howell is a questionable character at the quarterback position, but um, they have Jacoby Brissett there in case of emergency. I think last year they showed that even with Taylor Heineke, who's not, he's not great by any means, but McLaurin got it done, Jahan Dotson got it done, Curtis Samuel got it done. I think Terry McLaurin belongs just like locked in as a wide receiver too. And for where he's being drafted, you could actually get him as a wide receiver 3. I think he goes in like the mid-5th round of PPR drafts right now. So he's a pretty good value. I love Jerry Jeudy this year. I think everything that we saw last year with the Broncos offense, we kind of have to just take a deep breath and let it go. It was not set up to succeed. And now you're bringing in Sean Payton. I know Lombardi there, the offensive coordinator, people kind of scoff at him, but Sean Payton's going to be probably calling the shots for the most part. And Jerry Jeudy, as long as when Jerry Jeudy's healthy, he can be a huge force for opposing defenses. So I think Jeudy, this is the year he kind of steps up and becomes a top end wide receiver 2 for us. Keenan Allen, I'm a little bit nervous about Keenan Allen just getting older, but you have to admit, when he came back last year, he was dynamite. He performed as like a low-end wide receiver 1 in PPR leagues. And I fully expect the Chargers offense to bounce back this year. Justin Herbert should be healthier. The offensive line should be healthier. It should just be a better year for the Chargers offense. More efficiency coming as well. Now, one thing to note here is I'm pretty low on T. Higgins in terms of my projections, but I mean, I have him at 233 PPR points. Last year, T. Higgins, he ended up with 218. So I'm actually projecting him for a better year than he had last year. He did miss 3 games last year, and Jamar Chase missed 5 games last year. So there's some things to think about there. With Jamar Chase missing time, we could argue that T. Higgins should have had a better season with 5 games missing, and then T. Higgins also missing 3 kind of lowers his total there. But I like him a lot. I'm struggling to draft him because he's being drafted right around Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, DK Metcalf. I'm taking those guys over T. Higgins in fantasy drafts right now, just because I think they have just as, like, Olave, he's going to be this team's number 1 wide receiver. Same with Amon-Ra St. Brown's. Waddle could maybe beat Tyreek Hill. You don't know. But Waddle and Smith are interesting cases because that's like a 1A and 1B situation where those guys are both guaranteed to succeed. I think Higgins is guaranteed to succeed, but Waddle and Smith are more PPR friendly. Higgins is more kind of boom bust with PPR format. So I think half PPR is more of a Higgins league for me. Full PPR, I'm kind of passing on him in terms of his ADP right now. Deontay Johnson didn't catch a single touchdown last year. I think this is the year where he bounces back and catches 4 or 5 touchdowns, maybe more. He's going to be the leading target in Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people like George Pickens, but Kenny Pickett is going to continue to fire away with Deontay Johnson. I think it's pretty easy for me to see Deontay leading the team in receptions, targets, and probably receiving yards again this year. He just needs the touchdowns to file back into his column. Coming at number 22, Christian Watson. Watson's a really good best ball pick. I don't know if I want to grab him in our season-long redraft leagues. I think best ball, though, he's got a lot of potential to put up some ceiling weeks. I have him coming in at about 69 catches, a little over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. I expect him to be Jordan Love's favorite target, but we also have to, worry about some inefficiency with the first-year starting quarterback. Number 23 is Chris Godwin. I don't feel great about this. This is just where my numbers came out, but Baker's got to throw it to somebody. I don't think Baker's going to jive perfectly well with Mike Evans. I think Chris Godwin's going to be the guy that he looks for when he needs a third down completion, things like that. And Godwin, it's pretty simple to me. As long as Godwin's healthy, he's going to lead the team in receptions and yards, maybe even touchdowns. We don't know quite yet. So I think he's somewhat of a decent. I mean, for where he's being drafted, you can get him as a wide receiver 3. I have him ranked here as number 23. DeAndre Hopkins, this one's a little bit of a mystery as well. His numbers came out very similar to Chris Godwin, but Hopkins has that trade boost potentially hidden in his cards. Where, man, if he gets sent, even this summer he could get traded, but if he gets sent mid-season to a place that really needs a wide receiver, that could really separate him. But I'm slightly concerned because we don't expect Kyler Murray to be available the first 6 games at least. I'm putting him on the pup list in my projections. So we'll see. I like Hopkins, but again, he's getting older. You have questions at quarterback. Will he be traded? Not a guy that I'm super excited to draft right now. Let's move on to my wide receiver 3s. And here we go. Drake London. I mean, in my rankings, I have London ranked higher. I think London's going to be a really solid wide receiver 2 for fantasy football this year. He's currently being drafted right around Terry McLaurin in the 4th, 5th round turn, and he should have a better year in theory. Marcus Mariota was so bad last year, so inefficient. London should get a little bit of a bump in efficiency from Desmond Ridder. So I like London a lot. I think he's a stud, man. We have to be. I want to be ahead on Drake London. I don't want to have him prove it to me this year. I want to acquire him in the 5th round because again, people forget he was the first receiver taken in last year's draft. He's really freaking good. So try and target Drake London if you can. Number 26, Tyler Lockett. He's just locked in with Geno Smith. I know the presence of Jackson Smith and Najigba is going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, but Seahawks run a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, and Lockett's going to be the guy in there a lot. Calvin Ridley coming in at number 27. I'm higher on Christian Kirk than Calvin Ridley. And it's not something that I wanted to do. It just kind of happened this way. But I fully believe Christian Kirk is set to lead that team in receptions and targets. I mean, Calvin Ridley's been away for a year. I know he's going to have all training camp and whatnot to get worked into the system. But Christian Kirk's got a full season with Trevor Lawrence, a ton of targets, a ton of chemistry. I think he's got the inside track to outproduce Ridley this year. I think Ridley could lead the team in receiving yards and maybe touchdowns, but in a full PPR format, I'm finding Christian Kirk to be the better value right now because I think Ridley gets drafted in the 3rd round, the late 3rd round, sometimes the early 4th. And Christian Kirk, man, I've gotten him in the 4th round. I've gotten him in the 5th round. He's kind of right in that sweet spot there where I like to grab PPR wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk, I have him as the 1st ranked San Francisco 49er, and he is a tricky, really the 49ers, the whole offense over there is a tricky thing to handle because we do not know what's going on at quarterback. I think Brandon Ayuk is a better wide receiver than Deebo Samuel. I like Deebo Samuel's skill set, but I think Ayuk is ready to blossom. And my projections, I think I have Purdy playing 13 games. So there's potential for Sam Darnold or Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback the first couple of weeks of the season. We shall see, and I'm willing to adjust this as we get closer to the season. But for now, I think we should be valuing Brandon Ayuk as a solid wide receiver 3 on our team, a guy that you want to pull up in your flex or maybe the first receiver off your bench. Now, I am lower than consensus on DJ Moore. And I'm super excited about DJ Moore in Chicago. I think he's exactly the guy Justin Fields needs to take his game to the next level. But there's just not a lot of passing volume in Chicago. And for where DJ Moore is being drafted, I mean, he's currently being drafted in the 4th round of fantasy drafts. I mean, over guys like Drake London, over guys like Tyler Lockett, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin. He's being drafted over like all of these guys. And I just don't see it. I think there is value in DJ Moore, but for where he's being drafted, I don't want it. I think DJ Moore probably is going to look good as a wide receiver 3 flex on your team. Full PPR is the place you want him. But again, the Bears are going to throw the ball. They're going to have a bottom 5 team in passing attempts this year. So that slightly worries me a little bit with DJ Moore. To me, again, he's a wide receiver 3. Treylon Burks, another team where the passing volume is not going to be great. He is the clear wide receiver 1 on his team. Tannehill probably going to be playing the majority of the season. We might see Will Levis at the end of the year. But I'm willing to bet on Treylon Burks, especially at his ADP. I have DJ Moore here at 29, Treylon Burks in the 30th. I'm drafting Treylon Burks because he's a seventh, eighth round pick. I'm not drafting DJ Moore because he's a third, fourth round pick. So I like Burks a lot. There's no competition in town for him besides the tight end. So wheels up for Traylon Burks. I think he could be a guy that really blows up and has a tremendous second season. Coming at number 31 is Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a fine wide receiver 3. I think best ball leagues is kind of where he thrives because he has those blow up games, and then he has those games where he goes 2 for 20 and doesn't do anything. So I think best ball, yes. Redraft, I'm probably not super excited about. Jordan Addison, I am excited about because Adam Thielen's leaving behind over 100 targets and about 70 receptions, and I think you can easily just put that onto Jordan Addison's plate, and then from there he can do whatever he wants with it. So I think he's locked into solid wide receiver 3 numbers right away in his rookie season. Definitely a guy you want on your dynasty team because I mean the dude's gonna be benefiting from Justin Jefferson's presence. It's kind of like when AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, you have that dynamic duo. You have to respect AJB, so Devonta Smith's gonna eat. Same thing with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Same thing with who else am I missing here? I mean, DK and Tyler Lockett. There's a lot of those duos that benefit from each other drawing defensive presence. So I like Addison a lot. Michael Pittman Jr. coming in at number 33. Slightly concerned about the passing situation there with Anthony Richardson. There's going to be some ups and downs. I do think it's pretty safe to lock him in as the number 1 player on that team in terms of receptions, targets, yards, maybe touchdowns. He's just going to be a nice wide receiver 3 guy you want to put on your bench and see what happens. Jahan Dotson coming in at number 34. I'm super excited about. I think he could potentially emerge and close the gap on Terry McLaurin. I mean, it's clear to me McLaurin's going to be the guy, but I don't think there's going to be that big of a gap between receiver 1 to wide receiver 2 for them on that team. So I like Dotson. I think these are guys you want either on your bench or that flex position. Guys that have sky high ceilings. Deebo Samuel at 35 for me. He needs to stay healthy. I think I'm baking some of that into it. I'm also baking in uncertainty at quarterback. I'm baking in Brandon Ayuk potentially having a better season. I like Deebo, but to me, he's more of a wide receiver 3 flex player. And then Brandon Cooks. I'm excited about Brandon Cooks being on this team. He should operate as the number 2 target in Dallas. And the dude's just I have him only at 885 yards, but I'm not going to be surprised if he cashes in another 1,000-yard season. Let's move on to wide receiver 4s, guys that are pretty good bench upside players, guys that could be starting for you at some point this season. Starting with Mike Evans, George Pickens, Jacoby Myers, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, Adam Thielen, Juju. There's Jackson Smith-Njigba, Michael Gallup, Gabe Davis, Isaiah Hodgins, and Zay Jones. These guys all have question marks. I mean, we could get into the details and debate these guys, but I think leaving these guys in your lineup every week as a wide receiver 3, you're going to have some ups and downs. There's going to be questions, but either way, I do like this list. But we'll get more refined as this season goes on, or I guess as the summer goes on, I'll get these projections dialed in. And then some guys that I like as far as flyers go. Allen Lazard's going to be a good target for Rodgers. Devontae Parker, when he was healthy, he played well last year. I think the Patriots offense is going to be better this year. I think it's easy for me to see them improving in all their offensive metrics, especially just having Bill O'Brien there and improving the receiver room in general. I think Mac Jones in the passing game should be better. I'm excited about Elijah Moore with Cleveland. Van Jefferson, he's probably going to be the number 2 receiving target for Matthew Stafford. Jonathan Mingo, a fun wide receiver to take a stab on in the 10th, 11th, 12th rounds. Tyler Boyd just locked into a decent target role there in Cincinnati. I'm lower on Odell Beckham. And this is the first Baltimore receiver that I have on the list here. Ranked at 55. I have Zay Flowers at 58. And where is Bateman at 62? So how I'm handling Baltimore is I want to take one. I want to take a Baltimore receiver. I just take whatever one falls to me last, and it's usually Rashad Bateman. I'm not going to be surprised if Rashad Bateman is the guy you want. Odell Beckham, it's been a while since we've seen him stay healthy, so I'm kind of baking in some injury risk there. Zay Flowers is a rookie. He's hard to trust. Rashad Bateman, I mean, at the beginning of last year, man, he was looking really fun. So I'm not sure which Baltimore receiver to draft. I'm usually just drafting the one that falls to me last. Nico Collins could be the wide receiver 1 in Houston. Tim Patrick back with Denver. Curtis Samuel, just a utility guy for your bench. Josh Downs could be a nice player. Not really sure what we're getting there. And then from here on, these are just flyers in best ball leagues. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Bateman, MBS. He's attached to Mahomes. Hunter Renfrow, I heard he could be a trade candidate. They paid him a ton of money, which was weird. They go out and sign Jacoby Myers, so I'm not sure what's up with that. I think Jaden Reed could be better than Romeo Dobbs right away his rookie year. KJ Osborne's a fine wide receiver 3. Paris Campbell could lead the Giants in receptions. Tyquan Thornton, year 2 jump could be there. But then everything else after this is just kind of, deep sleepers and things like that. Don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas. Khalil Shakir could be fun. He had moments last year. Alec Pierce, Darius Slayton, these are best ball players that I want to kind of grab. I'm pretty low on Jameson Williams. I mean, I have him missing 6 games, but you just never know. There's injury risk. You got to probably dock him a game or 2 just in case of that. There's also he's the number 2, number 3 target on that team. So I like Jameson Williams. His ADP starting to fall where I can draft him. But at this point, it's all kind of just deep sleepers and stashes, dynasty or best ball teams that you want to be looking at. But that's it. That's the wide receiver projections. I'm going to cover tight ends I think tomorrow night. And again, I just want to stress, these are just preliminary. If you guys want to take a peek at them, again, they're free on the fantasyfellowship.com to go check out the 2023 playbook. And let me know. Let me know if I'm on the ball with something. Let me know if you disagree with something. I love it when people disagree with me because then we get to have a conversation, and it's fun to see other viewpoints on things. So that's it for me. Check out the 2023 playbook. Subscribe if you are new. We're right at 700 subscribers, so help us get over that number. And have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.